Kia ora whānau, and welcome to another episode of Get a Job and Get Healthy with Costas Enterprises. I am your host, Alex Costas, as always. And today's episode, we are going to be talking about the books that I've read over the last year. It is, of course, the end of the year. Usually I do this episode, I do it like twice a year. This time I'm only doing it once, and I thought I'd cover off, because today is December the 30th, I would sort of cover off the books that I've read. If you want, you can always contact me. We'll get all the fun stuff out of the way. Email me at doncostas@gmail.com. That's DONCOSTAS @gmail.com. That's N for Nike. And you can also find me through my Instagram and TikTok at the Kiwi Don, as well as my Twitter, at the Kiwi Don. You can go to my website, www.costasenterprises.business.blog, and you can also find me in there as well. So last year I told you guys about me setting my goal to hit 50 books. Unfortunately, I am 4 books shy. I got to 40. I'm on my 46th and 47th book. I'm sort of reading 2 books at once. So unfortunately I missed out on that, but I'm going to be telling you basically the last 45 books. When I talk about each book, because I can only usually record for a maximum of an hour, some of them will be general overviews, some will be a little bit more in depth, some will be books that I think everyone should read, and we'll just sort of go through those as well, and I'll be telling you sort of the name of the book, and also who wrote the book, and a little bit about what it's about, for the ones that I can remember. Now, unfortunately, I have been feeling a bit sick the last couple of days, which is why I didn't do an entry last time. So, yeah, it's going to be, I think there's 46 books that we're going to go through. So, we'll start going through them. So, the first book, now remembering, of course, that I listen to most of my books through audiobooks. So there's very, very few real books that I actually physically read. I don't particularly like it, so the audiobooks is the way that I like to go. Now, the first one was Everyday Millionaire by Chris Hogan. Very, very good book. It sort of talks about how you can have the mindset of becoming a millionaire, and it was very, 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 very good at looking at. Book number 2 was The Power of Showing Up by Daniel J. Siegel. This was a good book for, it sounds pretty simple. You will understand most of my books are self-help books for the most part. So you'll see patterns where I'll go quite big on some self-help ones and quite different on others. The Power of Showing Up was one of these ones, and it was good. Very well thought out, very well talked. And it's more about actually like going out there and doing what you need to. Book number 3 was The Audacity of Hope by Barack Obama. This was actually read by Barack as well, which is quite cool. Really, really interesting seeing into his life. It's kind of like talking about what he saw, the things that he learnt. This was written when he was a governor, not when he was, the president, but it basically was published when he was president, and he read it when he was president or former president. And yeah, it was really, really, good. Like, it was one of those ones talking a bit more about like the way that we are in society, and how we can go together and try to work together and to make things better. Book number 4 was Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life by Jordan B. Peterson. I remember saying the last time I did one of these book things that I read the 12 Rules of Life for Jordan Peterson, and it was a hard read. It wasn't dark, but it was very dark and gloomy, I suppose you could say, and I found it a very, very hard read. This second one, Beyond the 12, the other 12, was a much easier read. Um, he's a very smart man. It's a very long book, not as long as the original. The original was very, very long. This is, about maybe a half hour or less, but it was still, it was a little bit easier to read. I think I enjoyed it a lot more than the 12 Rules for Life. But yes, he knows his subject very well, and he talks very well. Then I read a fiction book, which was The 100-Year-Old Man Who Jumped Out of a Window and Disappeared by Jonason. Um, I actually really enjoyed this, and I don't listen to much fiction very much, and it was recommended by my partner, and I got to admit, I laughed so much, and every time that I thought the story was going somewhere, it went somewhere completely different, um, and was very, very funny. I strongly recommend, if you want a good laugh and you want a little escape, it's worth a look, because you don't know where it's going the whole time. Book number 6, How Not to Diet by Dr. Michael Greger. This was a very long book. We're talking about, if I remember correctly, it's like 20 odd hours, um, close to 24 hours possibly. But a very, very life-changing, very good book if you are trying to diet, and you're listening to all of these different books, or you're listening to all of these other people saying you should be doing this, you should be doing this. This book basically goes and does the science stuff, breaks it down, and then the guy is very real and tells you a lot of things about what works, what doesn't work, what you should be listening to, what you shouldn't be listening to. He does focus more on sort of eating raw, whole foods, but at the same time doesn't necessarily, he's not just about, like, he does talk about the plants as probably the best thing to eat, but he doesn't exactly go, hey, you shouldn't have this, 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 and this because of this, this, this. But he's actually got he's done the research for you, as opposed to some of these other self-help people that go out there and be like, oh, well, you should have this because this does this, and it doesn't really, they don't back it up with the facts. It is a long book, I'm not going to lie, but it was very interesting the whole time through, and it got me thinking a lot about what I was doing, what I need to change, and lots of things. Number 7, Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. Now, Who Moved My Cheese is a very short book. It's probably about 45 minutes, maybe an hour if you're lucky. There is a second one as well, which I did listen to as well, which is about 45 minutes, and it's about basically identifying different types of personalities and stuff that you have in your life, that you could be, and how you can actually change those. I would suggest people to give it a look. It's very quick, very easy to do, and yeah, very, very interesting. The next one is How to Rule the World from Your Couch by Laura Day. This was an okay book. It kind of gave me a lot of things about, like, working from home and stuff, and how you can uh, sort of, autonomize some things, and it wasn't as good as some of the other books that I've previously read in regards to that sort of stuff, but it does give you that mindset of like, hey, you can actually do a lot of stuff from home. You don't need to go into the office. You don't need to do this. You can do this. Number 9 was Recovery, Freedom from Our Addictions by Russell Brand. Now, I got to admit, I'm not a fan of Russell Brand. I never was. I liked him in moderation. After listening to this book, I'm a bigger fan. Like, the man breaks down so much about addictions, and you can see he's gone through a lot, but he does it in a funny way, but not in a funny laugh at himself way, like an actual, like, he draws a lot of conclusions. He made me think that he's actually a lot sort of smarter than the character that he sort of portrays all the time is. And yeah, very, very good book. Then I read The Wine O'Clock Myth, the book number 10. That's by Lotta Dan. She's a Kiwi. I got to admit, the 1 o'clock myth, I thought it was something else. I thought it was more about working stuff. When I get these books, I don't really look into them first. I don't click on it and go into the thing. I just click it. Sounds good. Sounds like a self-help book. This is about sort of like the wine drinking culture that women have, specifically in New Zealand, and talks a little bit about the drinking culture in New Zealand, um, the way the media portrays, all that sort of stuff. There were some things that the book was sort of saying that I didn't exactly agree with. Basically saying that uh, peer pressure was such a huge factor that everyone felt like they had to do it. It's like, look, I've grown up in New Zealand. I've been part of the drinking culture myself. I know I was one of those people that did used to peer pressure people as well. Um, but it was a little bit different to hear it from the woman's side, which is why I think I probably didn't really understand it that much. I mean, I understood it, but I didn't think it was that bad as they were making it. It is a longish read, but it is a good read. If you're interested about that sort of thing, it doesn't really help you deal with much about if you do have sort of like drinking addictions or anything like that. As I said, I originally thought it was something else, and then just started listening to it and thought, oh, she's a Kiwi, I'll give it a bit of time, and then kept listening to it. But overall, yeah, it was quite good. Um, then I did Out of the Maze by Spencer Johnson. That is the same guy that did Who Moved My Cheese. Again, it's about a 45-minute. It's just sort of just more of an evolution on what you learned in Who Moved My Cheese. Again, if you read Who Moved My Cheese and you read the other one, you'll be fine. It will help you quite a bit. Then I read Philosophy by Elizabeth Day. That was an okay book. I enjoyed it, but it was talking about how you can fail and how you can fail well. Yeah, Philosophy was it was an interesting book. Not really a major page turner in my book, but it was okay. Number 13, How to Fix Your Shit by Shah Wasmond. Um, yeah, this was okay. It was one of those ones where it was kind of like like the How to Unfuck Your Brain and all that sort of stuff, which I've had those before and I've read those before. Um, it was a pretty straightforward book. It was pretty good. Then after that, I did 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think by Brianna Weist, Weist. Um, Not so much for all of the essays, but there are about 4 or 5 essays in there that really shook home, really made me stand up. And I can't even remember what the essays were called, let alone what number they were, but it was definitely worth a look. It was a longish book, but still pretty good. Um, Number 15, Normal Sucks by Jonathan Mooney. Um, this book was more about like the people that aren't normal, people with disabilities and stuff. I didn't realize I was actually reading what I was reading. But yeah, it gave me a bit more of an openness for people that aren't considered, and I'm using quotation marks here, normal by society, and that they can do amazing things. And the guy himself has done amazing things himself. Um, and basically his fight from adversity was pretty amazing, pretty amazing. And it is one of those sort of uplifting type books, very, very good. Then I listened to, in this case, so the next couple are all comedy type things. I got into sort of a comedy mode, and all of them came at once. I just wanted to laugh a little bit. I wasn't feeling fantastic. So this is the Sarah Millican Support Group by Sarah Millican. This was more like, I'll be honest, it was more like a radio play. And the next couple you will see that they kind of were like that. They were like radio plays. It was very funny. Sarah Millican is a very funny comedian. She is well worth a look for this group. I mean, it's obviously been done with a couple of a couple of other actors on there, and they do go through a support group type thing, and they talk about it. And yeah, I had a good laugh with that one. Then I had Life and Laughing with Michael McIntyre. Again, Michael McIntyre is a British comedian, very funny. This is sort of like his life. Um, he's not my favourite comedian, but out of my British comedians, I do quite like him. I think he's quite funny. Some of his jokes are very, very good. They don't. Some of the jokes come through on his book. He does read it himself as well, which is quite funny. But it's very interesting to hear about like how he got into the comedy business, all the shit that he had to go through to get there. We're not talking adversity. We're talking like just funny shit that happened. Really, really good, quite funny, and I quite enjoyed it. Then we had book number 18, Uncook Yourself by Nat's What I Reckon. Now, Nat's What I Reckon is a kind of like a TikToker, YouTuber. I got to admit, I didn't think I would find this book super funny. Um, it's sort of suited more at your bogan. He is Australian and he has no reservations. He swears a lot. Very funny. I actually really enjoyed it. And yeah, like from a guy that's gone through a lot of stuff himself, he has some funny parts in it, but he talks about that stuff, and yeah, really quite good. Psycho by Margaret Cho was book number 19. Um, I'm going to be honest, this was more like a stand-up special, which was okay. Wasn't fantastic. Then we had Feel Great, Lose Weight, Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. Um, this was actually a really good book. And it was one of those books that I didn't think I would listen to for very long. Um, Still not as good as the How Not to Diet, but still very good as an intro level to that sort of stuff. I'm having one of my smoothies while I do this, sorry. Book number 21, Decode Your Fatigue by Alex Howard. Now, this book, I was feeling very tired, and I thought that's what it was going to be. It was more about decoding your fatigue for people that have sort of not mental, sorry, issues, but physical issues with fatigue, and how you can sort of sort through this. This was a struggle because I wasn't really part of the subject matter. I did find it very, very hard to listen to it, but it did work, and it was good. It didn't really give me much help, but at the same time, it was interesting to listen to what this guy had set up in the home country and stuff like that, and what he was doing to try and build a community, build a network where there was none. So yeah, really amazing in that respect. Number 22, Stupid Things I Won't Do When I Get Old by Stephen Petro. This was quite a good book. It was quite funny because the guy had done the things effectively, and was learning also from his parents what he shouldn't have done. Yeah, it was quite a good book. Reasonably funny. He was quite funny. But yeah, a good book otherwise. Then we had Where the Deer and Antelope Play by Nick Offerman. You will notice I read quite a bit of Nick's Offerman's stuff this year. I almost got through, I think, either 3 or 4 of his books, and I've read like one of his ones before it. Deer and Antelope Play is a newer book. It came out sort of like last year, I think, maybe this year. And the book was more about having respect for nature. And, it's like America's a great country with amazing national parks, and why, you should be looking after those parks. Each one of his books is about 11 hours but he does do it himself. Of course, Nick Offerman, for those that don't know, is Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec. And I'm going to be completely open and honest that I adore this man, and I think that he he really taps into a lot of things. Like he talks about he doesn't just talk about America in the way that, like, the national park's great. He talks about farming, he talks about agriculture, he talks about all the things that you would not expect someone like an actor to talk to, but then actually talk about that stuff as well. So yeah, I strongly suggest, if you are sort of wanting to know more about environmentalism and the way that things possibly should be done to help your local area, it is a good listen to, especially as an intro to that sort of stuff. And he will give you ideas on what needs to happen, as well as also talking about things that uh, should help people. Then book number 24 was Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. This was a radio play. Now, I have watched the TV show, and the radio play was very similar to the TV show, obviously. Like, almost to the degree that they took parts that I was like, I could actually visualize it really well. And it was really well done, The Good Omens, Terry Pratchett. Like the cast was amazing. Book number 25, At Sixes and Sevens by Rachel Riley. Now, this is Rachel Riley from Countdown. She is a math goddess and knows all the stuff. This was a hard read. I don't like maths. I never have liked maths. And this was supposed to be aimed at people that don't like maths and want to learn that stuff. I found it very, very hard to follow along. And yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, she reads the whole thing and it's very nice, and she's very funny with it, and it's just me turning off with that sort of stuff as well. Then I read As You Wish, number 26, As You Wish by Kerry Ewells, and that is, of course, the book about The Princess Bride, what went on behind the scenes. I read this book very, very quickly and really, really enjoyed it. It made me geek out quite a bit, actually, because I do love The Princess Bride, and it's always been one of those sorts of movies that I like. I when I introduced it to my partner, I was like, this is one of the greatest movies you'll ever see, and she doesn't like older movies, so it was really great for her to go, oh, I really enjoyed that. It's probably considered one of my top 10 of all time movies that I can watch it over and over again, love it, and it doesn't matter what. And so he goes deep into that stuff. He even, when he's talking, and I would say, if you can, get the audiobook. Get the audiobook, because he actually has the cast come in and talk their parts and all that sort of stuff. And he covers all the things. He brings in the producers and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, really, really good. Book number 27 was Gumption by Nick Offerman. This is one of his older books, talking about gumption, like people that have gumption, and then he sort of defines what gumption sort of is. And yeah, really, 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 really interesting. If you read some of the other books of his first, and then you come to gumption, you'd be like, I see where he found these people. So if you start with gumption, you'll probably have a better understanding when he starts talking in the other books about these people, where, you'll be like, I understand where this comes from now. It's because of the book Gumption, where he talks about them in depth, basically. Really, really cool. The man is very, very smart and very big on his history as well as, of course, an actor and all that sort of stuff as well. Then we've got The Neuroscience of Self-Love by Alexis Fernandez-Priesc. This was a good book. This was very, very interesting to hear about the way, like the science way that our head works, when we are starting to do things like meditation, looking after yourself, when your dopamine releases, and, how you can make it actually work for you and stuff. Yeah, very, very interesting. Book 29 was not really a book at all. It was the best motivational speeches of all time, and there was no actual person associated to this. It just said various, including Bill Gates, Denzel Washington, and others. This did have quite a few speeches. They were very well done, and they were the actual speeches by the people themselves. There was no explaining them. They didn't need to explain it. It was just like jump into the speech, go into the next speech, go into the next speech, go into the next speech. Quality in sometimes is pretty crap, but at the same time, you can tell that they've ripped it from certain ones. Um, I do suggest, if you do need some, you know, some something quick to sort of jazz you up and make you feel like, feel something. It's a good little book to listen to, and it's not very long either. Then book number 30, I did White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. Um, this is one of those life-changing books. I had already just previously done a course on what White Fragility is. I've talked about it previously in one of my other podcasts. This book was, my goal was to sort of go through it and try to expand my knowledge. And as a Pākehā, as a New Zealand European, as a white person, it is not the easiest of reads. Especially, it's very confronting, but that's the whole point, is to confront yourself and to, be better. Yeah, I think everyone should read that. It's a really, really good book. Next one was Permission Granted. This is book number 31, Permission Granted by Regina Louise. Regina Louise. Very good book. Basically, you are giving yourself permission to do the things that you want to do. If you want to do that, you want to make that change in your life, you give yourself your permission to do that. Kind of like The Year of Yes, which I've read that. I got to admit, The Year of Yes I found was a much better book, but Permission Granted is sort of in the same vein, that it is the same thing. And the Regina girl is very funny. She's, it's sort of been written for the now. And I do think that, it's really well done. Then I read The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz. This is the same guy that wrote Profit First, and he's also writing the book that I'm working on now, which is Clockwork. This is more aimed at sort of entrepreneurs. Pumpkin Plan is amazing. It is sort of, Profit First was more about, like, making sure when you set up a business, you pay yourself as well. You pay yourself first, so that way you can use your mind to try to find other ways to do things. Pumpkin Plan is about, like, how do you niche your business effectively, in a good way, so that you don't sort of, you only get the best of everything. And Clockwork is about automating your business. So I would say, if you are an entrepreneur, or you're a small business owner, you should be listening to those books by Mike Michalowicz. Very, very interesting. Book number 33, Aroha by Dr. Hinemoa Elder. Now, Aroha, for those that don't know, I know that I do have some people that listen from sort of the US and that listen from other countries. Aroha is Māori for love, and Dr. Hinemoa Elder had also just recently passed away. Very, very good book. A lot of basically talking about Māori proverbs and how they have impact on our lives. There is a lot of Māori in it. I don't speak Māori, but it definitely made me, want to learn more. She does a fantastic job of talking on it, talking to it, and explaining the sort of proverbs and how they impact our lives. Really, really interesting. Book 34, Paddle Your Own Canoe by Nick Offerman. Again, I told you I've got a few of his. Great book. Again, as I said, I love him. Paddle Your Own Canoe is basically about, like, doing stuff for yourself, not following the trends. Like, if you want to do something yourself, do it yourself. Book 35, What They Forgot to Teach You at School by The School of Life. This was an okay book. This was very sort of, it's very simple. It was had some good points, talking about things like tax and setting up your relationships and all that sort of things, so that you don't, because when you're a kid, you don't learn about like properly about some sorts of relationships or taxes or these sorts of things that you should be doing, which is what the intention of the book is, I think. It's just weird that it's not an actual author and it's just called The School of Life. And it's like, well, okay, is that a little culty? It sounds like, Book 36 is 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Berkman. This was an okay book. This is basically talking about how most people don't realize that in your lifetime, if someone asked you how many, how many days would you have in a lifetime? How many weeks would you have in a lifetime? And, it's actually only 4,000 weeks, which doesn't sound as much as you'd think. But when you work it out, it actually is. And what you can do in that time, what you should be doing in that time for you. Very good book. Very good book. Book 37, Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet by Thich Nhat Hanh. Very good book. I had a lot of Zen sort of things at this time. And I am trying to be more environmentally conscious. I wasn't before. I'm trying these days because, I want to help live on this planet, and I don't want to just, do what I used to do, where I used to litter a lot or, fuck around and stuff. And this book sort of helped me with that sort of stuff. Book 38, Letters to You by Jazz Thornton. Jazz is a TikTok influencer, director, Kiwi. And yeah, it's kind of about letters to you in the way of, like, if you feel like you are needing help, if you are feeling like you are needing, maybe you're in a depressive state. There are letters in there that you can listen to with Jazz, and she will sort of explain it. And you read these letters to help you get out of those mindsets, to help you get out of those things. A very good book. Interesting way that it was created. And yeah, a different sort of mindset for the way it's been done as well. Really cool, really cool. Book 39, Golden, The Power of Silence in a World of Noise by Justin Zorn and Lee Mars. This was really, really good book. I actually enjoyed it. It was a very long book. But yeah, it sort of talked about, like, slowing down, living in the moment more, and being mindful of your environment, being mindful of your area, and being supportive of people in that, as well as supportive of yourself. Very, very cool book. Then the next book after that was Opening the Door to Your Heart by Ajahn Brahm. I've read a couple of Ajahn Brahm's books, and he is a Australian monk, and he's quite funny, which is why I'm actually reading another one of his books at the moment. And yeah, really, really good book. I can't recommend him enough. If you are sort of wanting to go towards a spiritual journey, it's a great starting point for that. And it definitely, reading the book has given me some stories. Like, that's what it is. Most of them are just different stories. So it's not chapters. It's all, well, there are chapters per se, but effectively each couple of pages or each page is a story that he tells you, and the story will sort of give you a way of thinking and principle. So yeah, really, really good. And he's very, very easy to read. These are physical books that I've actually read as well. Yeah, strongly suggest. The Practice of Groundfulness by Bradley Stillberg. Again, this is another sort of one about you just grounding yourself. And this is, not in the same vein of, take off your shoes, sit in the Lord and just, zen yourself out. It kind of has a little bit of the aspect to that, but for the most part, it is more about, grounding yourself to the environment where you are, grounding yourself to the place where you are, and living with that. Um, 42, It Works, the Deluxe Edition by R.H.J. A very, very short book, like maybe 30 minutes. And very similar to the Cheese book, very short, very powerful. Um, this particular It Works, it's more, I'm gonna put it out this, it's very similar to The Secret, without saying The Secret. It's kind of like using the law of attraction to your advantage, and the more you, instead of doing that, it's more about taking your mindset, and if you focus on having, it's kind of like be, do, have. So, if you want to be the thing you want to be, you have to do the thing so that way you can have what it is that you want. That's kind of the way that it works. But it's more on a simplistic level. It's more, if you tell yourself 20 times a day and you write down 20 times a day what it is that you want, then, eventually you will get it because it's in your mindset. It's always in your mindset and all that sort of things. How to Master Your Monkey Mind by Don McPherson was book number 43. I'm not going to lie, this was a hard book. I spent ages with this book trying to get into it. In the end, I did. At some point, it just clicked, and then I just listened to it. It was very good. The guy is a sort of a sports psychologist. Really, 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 really interesting. Really, really good. But it did take me a while to sort of properly listen to it as well. Book number 44, Kickstart Your Success by Romanus Walter. This was a good book. This is, I am sort of going through a change in my mindset of what I want to do with my life, and this is sort of talking about that sort of how you get there, what you need to do, and this is one of it was a very good book for that sort of stuff. And then because I want to sort of upskill myself with my own interview techniques and all that sort of stuff so I can teach people, the last book that I've got on here, book number 45, 101 Great Answers to the Toughest Interview Questions by Ron Fry. Very good book. And if you are going for an interview at all, I would strongly suggest getting that book. And listening to it. It is very good. Now, all of these books, apart from the ones that I physically read, which wasn't many, on this book, they are available on the Libby app, Libby app, which as long as you've got a library card, you register your library card and you can take the books out as if you are actually taking a book out at the library. As I said, most of these are audiobooks. I strongly suggest people take their time and they go through these because, I think it's just a really, really good and easy way to listen to your audiobooks or to read. If you want to read on your phone, you can read books that way as well. And it's free, which, you can't really go wrong when it's free. But that's about it. I do have a couple more books that I am currently working on. Some for fun, others for like actually working on. But I don't think I'll finish those by tomorrow, so that's why we've stopped the list at 45. So until next time, thank you very much for listening. I hope everyone has a fantastic day. As always, I love you guys, and as always, good luck.